like to call the public meeting to order. Today's August 9th, 2021. It's at 6:30 p.m. Governing board members present: Paul Bixler, Michael Todd, Jamie Miller, and myself, Mark Aguirre. Michael, if you could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, we'll move right into item 1.4. I'm sorry, I take that back. 1.2.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. Statute requires that the superintendent of public instruction, along with the auditor general, prescribe the budget format used by all districts. Statute also requires districts to use and submit the budgets in an electronic format and on forms provided by the Arizona Department of Education. Due to the later legislative session, updated forms for this fiscal year were not available to districts to propose and adopt the annual budget. The forms have since been released, and as required, the district is requesting approval of the fiscal year 21-22 annual school district budget revision number 1, which includes the newly updated forms. The changes reflected in the revision are as displayed here on the screen. There is an overall increase of $24,778. The increase is to account for an increase in the Group B support level funding for both multiple disabilities, self-contained, and gifted ADM. And if anyone has any questions, I would be very happy to answer them.
So this is the portion where the public can come up and ask any questions about the financial budget for the upcoming year. Are there any questions from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 1.4, information on elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund grant.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. While he's pulling that up, I think I got it here actually. Perfect. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information on the ESSER 3 funding being allocated to the district. This information was also previously presented at a community meeting. The Arizona Department of Education has received funding through the American Rescue Plan, ARP, the American Rescue Plan Act, to provide new elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3 fund grants to schools to support local recovery needs and efforts in response to COVID-19. The deadline to apply is August 23rd. There are provisions in the funding to fund allowable expenses all the way back to March 13 of 2020. We don't intend to go back that far, but the provision is there. Funds are available as soon as the application is approved and must be expended by September 30, 2024. So essentially this allows us to spend through the 23-24 school year. The amount awarded to the district is $3,096,818.35. The criteria used for the award is similar to the criteria for the federal Title I funding, but it's not restricted to just the Title I schools. There are requirements to apply. The district must post a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction. We must seek community input on the spending plan, which we have had one community meeting, and this will be the second during this public hearing. And the district must set aside 20% of the award to specifically address learning loss. The top portion of this slide is what has been allowable for all ESSER funding. And even though addressing learning loss has been included in allowable uses all along, there is a requirement to set aside a minimum of 20% of the funding to support that purpose. Activities must be evidence-based, respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs, and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on student populations with the greatest need and learning gaps. The next few slides show the proposed spending for the ESSER 3 allocation, and I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly, but stop me if you have any questions. For the required set-aside, 20% to specifically address learning loss, the district has planned spending of summer school for June and July of 2022. Funding for reading intervention teachers at all campuses. ESSER 2 monies are actually being used to fund these intervention positions for the 21-22 year and the 22-23 year. So these will allow those positions to be funded for one additional year. Tutoring for students. This will allow for systematic tutoring at each campus, and there's a plan to increase the tutoring rate to compensate teachers for after-school tutoring. And funding for Achieve 3000 for grades 3 through 5 at all campuses. And Achieve 3000 is a curriculum program it's a program that provides curriculum support. The next few slides are representative of the spending plan for the remaining ESSER 3 monies, although some could be still considered to address learning loss. There will be, or actually most, there will be continued funding for the Edgenuity learning platform to support distance learning. Funding for class size reduction staffing. This will provide funding to support lower class size. Funding for the phonics program to support learning loss. Funding for ClassWise. It's a Chromebook monitoring tool to support the one-to-one technology at all grade levels. Along with Edgenuity, there's a line item to fund teaching staff to support distance learning. Funding for repair and replacement of damaged student devices, and funding to support a replacement plan for those one-to-one devices at all grade levels. It allows for funding for library books. $5,000 is being set aside at each campus to purchase new library books and provide additional reading resources. Funding to support social studies curriculum for all grade levels. Funding to support math and science curriculum. And all of those will provide additional resources to teachers, again, to address learning loss and help support learning gaps. And the last item is to provide additional funding to support enhanced HVAC filters to help improve air quality. The spending planning also includes funding for EduClimber, which is a data capturing tool, which is inclusive of SEI academics and behavior information. Funding for FastBridge, which is a program to allow for diagnostic and benchmark testing for reading and math. Funding for long-term substitute support at all campuses to support coverage of classes, and when not needed, a substitute teacher, when not needed as a substitute, they'll support reading intervention at the lower grade levels. Funding for Envision software, which is a strategic planning tool to assist with visualization and data monitoring. And I think that's the last slide, and if anyone has any questions, we would be happy to answer them. And it's a lot of information, we went through it quickly.
Are there any questions from the public? Any questions from the board? Ms. Basinger, I did have a question. Did any of this funding, is this state funded?
This is all federal funding.
This all come from the federal government? And is this more or less, for all intents and purposes, if you will, one-time funds?
Yes, sir.
This is not something that is
I
going to
apologize, I did
continue?
not mention that these are one-time monies, and once they're spent, they're exhausted, and we will no longer have any of those available.
So there's no going back to the kitty then?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn the public portion of our meeting.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we adjourn the public meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that we adjourned at 6:39. I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order at 6:30, or 6:40, I apologize, correction. We've done introductions and the Pledge of Allegiance, so we will just move right into item 3.2. It is recommended the governing board approve the regular agenda form consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda form consistent with board policy BEDB, temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Second. So I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously. Administrative reports. Construction update for Blue Horizon and Liberty Elementary Schools. Chase Building Team.
Get this thing to work. Mr. President, fellow board members, my name is Ben Shunk. I'm with Chase Building Team, and with me is Patrick Shepard, also with Chase, and we also have David Schmidt here with DLR if there's any questions on the architecture side. We were asked to come present just a brief update on the progress of both Liberty Rebuild and Blue Horizon. So we have a couple of just real quick slides, high level, and then we're here to answer any questions if you should want to dive into anything else. So we're going to start with Liberty Rebuild, our neighbor here. So here's a couple of aerials from about a week ago. So we have temporary certificates of occupancy for the C building, which is the gym building here, the B building, the admin, and the A, actually I got backwards, ABC. Then the D building is kind of back in the wings there. And then we have our construction fence set up, ready to start, or we're started now on phase 2, which is the southern half of the site there. Here's some interior shots for if some of the folks here haven't been to the campus yet. We've got the entryway there. There's a typical classroom there in building C. Brand new state-of-the-art kitchen. The entrance building into the admin area. Brand new multi-purpose room with the spongy Mondo flooring, if you've had a chance to check it out yet. We also have the library and the building stage. And also, you can't see it from this angle here, but we were able to salvage the old gym floor logo out of the old gym building, and that is now up on the west wall there. Here is, we didn't get a good shot. Is this thing gonna play? So you can see the new parking lot on the west side. The D building there, which we did a pretty extensive renovation in that building there. New separate kinder area there with the shade structure. Finishing up the DG, the rains the last week or so before we turned over, kind of hampered the ability to put some DG down there, so that's getting spread as we speak. The administration building, the gym, the fields were hydro-seeded this morning, now that the field's dried out enough so we can actually get equipment on there to do the hydro-seed going across it. So if you see out there's green, so that's the first step of the hydro-seed, and we're coordinating for flood irrigation consistently over the next couple weeks to let that seed germinate. As far as the remainder of phase 2 goes, we are with the fire system. There's the temporary pump is in place right now. We knew that due to lead times on the permanent pump should be coming in mid-September for the permanent pump system over there. The new septic system with the pre-inox and post-inox and just getting all the nitrogen levels down is fully in place, fully signed off. So we are projecting, so what we have left to do now is most of the grading is done there south of the D building. There is an arroyo that goes through there with some new sidewalk, some new DG going down there, really sprucing up the south half of the campus there. We're also working on, we're calling it the agricultural shade structure, which is directly across from the old gym there. So we're gutting that as much as we can to turn it into more for some future agricultural uses as TBD. But majority of the site, all the site on phase 1 and wrapping around the corner is complete. The marquee sign is done and fabricated. We did have to change locations on it, so it actually extended the pole a little bit, so we're revising that footing, getting that approved through the city as we speak, so we can get that marquee installed similar to what we have up at Blue Horizons right now. So that's kind of holding up that front little corner right there, so we can get that in and before we have to dig out a little area for that marquee. So let Patrick go through Blue Horizon, and we'll open it up to questions.
All right, thank you, Ben. And as he just did, we'll do something similar here now for Blue Horizons.
We're excited to be here. We're excited to report that we were able to complete these projects and get students in seats last week. So thrilled to be here and share that information. Similar here, a few shots of that interior. We do have that administration desk with that really cool front counter, as well as that wall accent. Your typical classrooms, again, a very state-of-the-art kitchen. Your library, your multi-purpose, which was also turned over, and then finally a corridor there in Building D. And similar, we've got the aerial here, which you can see that field closest to us now on the west side. That is getting put together. Sod should actually be going down tomorrow. You see the activity there on Building E, that roof as it continues there to the east, and then Building D. We are now actively moving through those buildings as most of our forces had been concentrated in Buildings A, B, and C in order to turn those over and have those active for this first fall semester. You can see now that central corridor complete with all that hardscape connecting. I'm sorry that ended early. That corridor is connected right now. You can flow all the way between A, B, and C. We do have our construction fencing up with the windscreen, so it does keep that site contained, so we can have as minimum impact to that campus as possible as we continue with the overall construction of D and E. Building A still has some work going on in there. If you remember, this project was 3 phases. We were able to actually complete phase 2 concurrent with phase 1 and turn that over. So phase 2, if you're not familiar, was Building C, all the additional classrooms, as well as some work in Building A, which included the kitchen and some auxiliary classrooms along that multi-purpose room and secondary gymnasium. So we are completing up that main gymnasium, projecting to turn that over hopefully towards the end of October. Buildings D and E are also on track, and we project turning those over and ready for students and Liberty to take, I think, occupancy towards the end of October, early November-ish. So right now we're moving through that actively, and again, just happy to be here and happy to say that the students and faculty are in class as we speak. So, and we'll open that for any questions.
Paul, we'll start with you.
I haven't any questions.
Michael?
I have a couple questions. Was there a traffic study done at either of these schools to address the traffic ingress and egress for the neighborhood and also for the schools prior to the build? And do we have copies of that?
Yes, there certainly was. Blue Horizons had quite an extensive traffic study that led to a lot of work and a lot of coordination that went into some of that offsite planning. There's also an on-site queuing that was put together that was coordinated with the help of DLR, of course, and then also the city of Buckeye that provided a recommendation for queuing on that campus. It ultimately, I think, took into account the maximum amount of students that that campus would be able to hold. So right now, what we currently have going with 2 of those buildings not being occupied is some of that space being used for that construction parking. That way we can keep our folks away from the rest of the public. And that queuing, when all is said and done and both those buildings are occupied, is actually shown to queue all the way and snake through that western parking lot. And what that does is that allowed for enough vehicles to be off of Blue Horizons there and on campus and with an approved, at that approved level for the city of Buckeye.
And there's also going to be, so that the parking lot's in a phased condition right now as well. The parking lot we actually are using construction is actually part of phase 3. We have that paved right now, but the ultimate queuing plan, actually, there's going to be a whole new striping plan. Couldn't put the striping down now because it would lead everybody into a construction zone. So ultimately, there's going to be a double queue coming in off of Blue Horizons there, heading north, coming all the way around, snaking through the lot, signage, cones. So right now, we apologize if there's quite a bit of backup, I understand, but it's a temporary condition that's ultimately designed for, Scott, I know David, if you can speak to it, but the queuing length on it is quite extensive once it's in final build out. So it's in a temporary condition right now.
So, okay, thank you. I guess my concern is that I was there the first day and we have a crosswalk coming across the street at the main entrance, and then the kids walk right across the entranceway. So we get them across the crosswalk, and unless we send them all the way down to the far north end of the school around the marquee, they're coming right through that parking lot. It just doesn't seem like
That's
that's,
the ultimate design. It is currently how the kids are coming across the street right now. It should be coming up to the north, staying on the sidewalk out of the intent is not to have them crisscross the road when there's a bunch of traffic going right there. So it is a little longer walk, but it's to get the kids out of
Right.
traffic, is my understanding.
okay. It didn't seem like it was working very well, so I was just curious.
And there's some training that happens. A lot of schools, especially brand new schools, even established schools, I imagine the first day of school with a lot of new parents. It's just getting the flow nailed down to everybody, and you know, there's gonna adapt and adjust. And I know we're working with Norma and signage and trying to help alleviate whatever we can there.
Thank you. A couple more questions I have. What is the estimated completion date for both schools that we could expect that they're done? Not that we don't want you guys here, but we want our schools, so.
Rebuild on phase 2 will be the end of September.
For which school?
Rebuild.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
Yep,
Okay.
rebuild, the end of September. Clint's actually shooting for a contractual completion is 9/17, and we're right on that date right now. So they got the mass grading done here now on phase 2. Those buildings are down, or abated, demoed, got the mass grading done. So now they're gonna work through putting the hardscape back together and pulling it all back together now.
And then for Blue Horizons, right now, Building D and E, both projecting to be about 11/15 to 11/19. And then Building A projected with the balance of that gym and the rest of the classrooms late October. I think 10/27 might have been the date.
And we were originally projecting a December turnover on those, so we're trying to accelerate those a little bit, get them done well in advance. So I'm not sure what the final plan is on when we're gonna occupy, where the district's gonna occupy D and E, but trying to get those done. They're ramping up, accelerating those right now.
Okay. The only other thing I'd just like to get on record is that I think it's important for the board and the principals of the schools to do a final walkthrough before we do a final sign off. I'd like to see that happen. We can talk about that as an agenda item, probably down the road somewhere.
Sorry, so we were just talking about substantial completion. So the dates that they gave you were obviously the dates that they can turn over, and there'll still be a few things after that we'll be walking through with the principals and with the engineering teams and looking at every little piece and making sure it's all touched up, but that's
Yeah,
the
we work
date.
in detail with Katrina and Eric with DLR's team on a detailed punch list, make sure everything's signed off satisfactory. Then we work with the facilities team and the ownership team on making sure that everybody's happy with everything.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, any questions?
No questions for me. Thank you.
So, a couple questions I had. Did you guys do a soft opening on either one of the schools?
A soft opening?
Yes, sir.
No, I guess the first soft opening would have been Meet the Teacher Night.
Okay. The other question that I have, it's my understanding there was an incident that happened last week at Liberty Elementary. And the question I have was, did you guys get in touch with Blue Stake at all?
Yeah, the site is blue staked for all the utilities since it's a private irrigation. It's a private line through the on-site well system and the tank. The valve was there. It was in actually like a landscape irrigation box. It was identified. It was our superintendent walked through. Number one, we apologize. There's no excuses for it. It should have never gotten hit. We apologize for all the inconvenience that happened to that. But it was identified with the foreman. Everything was, the line was walked out. It's kind of like a minefield back there, how the PVC line from the well system kind of comes up and feeds the building. So our superintendent walked with the foreman for the earthwork contracting firm, but the loader got too close when they were working grading in that area to that valve, and ultimately that PVC failed.
So was there ever a spotter in the area knowing that that's the feed water for the school, knowing that there's children on campus? Was there a spotter?
There was not.
Okay, thank you. No other questions. Apologize. Item 4.2, Summer Learning Lab and New Teacher Orientation Report.
Good evening, Mr. President, governing board members. Erica Daniel, our Ed Service Coordinator, and myself will present to you this evening an administrative report to summarize the Summer Learning Lab experiences and outcomes, as well as the new teacher orientation experiences and outcomes. Hello.
Hi, so we had 2 sessions of Summer Learning Lab this summer. Our first session was a K1 session, and our second session was a 2-3 session. Our goal was to increase student achievement in the area of reading, and our Summer Learning Lab was twofold. One, it was working on student achievement in reading, but 2, it was giving a preview and an early execution of our supplemental phonics program. So all our Summer Learning Lab teachers, interventionists, and the coordinators received a full day training on our supplemental phonics program, Reading Horizons. Then built into the day, it's a 4-hour block. 1 hour a day, they planned as a team together to deliver prescriptive instruction to their students. So they worked with the reading interventionist, the coordinator, and all the grade level teams to collaboratively plan and problem solve so that their instruction was on point. And then we went with the administration, the curriculum coordinators and admin of all the schools, did observations of the classrooms using the Reading Horizons checklist to provide specific feedback for the teachers so that we are always fine-tuning our instruction and reaching all our students. Then on Tuesdays, every day the reading teachers stayed after for an hour, and they received training based off those observations that happened the week prior. So it went teacher professional development, then they went to the collaborative planning as a team together to plan their lessons for that week. Then the administration came in and did observations using the checklist with specific descriptors for each of the blocks. And then we would coach them. And then it would repeat again for the following next week. So some of our results were amazing in such a short time. So the K1 Summer Learning Lab was 16 days long. We had 78 students attend from across all schools in the district, and we had 17 teachers from across the district participate. Kindergarten data results were 71% increased their score in phoneme segmentation, which means they can hear the sounds in words. So if a student can hear the sounds in words, they're more apt to be able to blend and read those words when they're decoding. And we increased 69% in kindergarten with being able to read nonsense words. So that's just seeing if they can put 3 sounds together. Then in first grade, we increased 69% with reading those CVC chunks. And overall, 81% increased their grade level reading. In our 2-3 Summer Learning Lab, we had 11 days to target instruction. We had 41 students participate across the district and 11 teachers. Second grade increased their oral reading fluency, which is their grade level reading, by 86%, and 64% of the students increased their retell, meaning when they stopped reading, they were able to tell a logical retell of what they read. And then 73% of them passed the phonics screener task. Third grade results were 58% increased in their grade level oral reading fluency, and 74% increased their score in retell. And 84% passed their phonics skill task. So some of the things we were thinking about as we were collaborating at the end and reflecting on the success of Summer Learning Lab, we wanted to make an adjustment, trying to get more students and teachers involved. So we were looking at one section of Summer Learning Lab in June, so that would free up families to take vacations, because we had some absences because families were going on vacation. It would also allow for siblings to attend together. And they definitely wanted to replicate the training model of the training, the cooperative planning, the coaching, and then the professional development. And they liked how the reading interventionists were involved. We already had small groups, but we were still able to take that small group and divide it into even smaller groups so that we were reaching the needs of all the students in that reading class for Summer Learning Lab. And then we would like to launch mathematics for K2 with the LEDC model. Some of the things that the teachers said at the end of Summer Learning Lab that they felt ready to start teaching the new supplemental phonics program, Reading Horizons. It has a lot of routines, procedures, new content, a marking system, and they got to learn that in a stress-free environment with a really small group of students with continuous observations so that they were able to fine-tune their instruction. And they really liked the systematic approach to phonics. They felt it was very explicit and engaging, and their kids were on task and motivated to learn. One of the things they also recommended for next steps was more practice teaching the lessons with each other in that planning time so that they felt even more prepared when they were in front of students.
Thank you, Erica. I'm going to continue with new teacher orientation, and just a connection to make to new teacher orientation. We had at least 2 new teachers to our district participate and teach Summer Learning Lab. That's just amazing to me. We welcomed our new teachers on July 21st. Seems like yesterday. Here were our goals. Develop a feeling of connectedness by welcoming new teachers at the district and site level. Ensure that our new teachers had enough time in their classrooms to set up and prepare. Goal 3, provide professional development in order to meet the needs of individual interests and incoming teachers. Goal number 4 was very important to everyone, food. We'll just go with that, food. And goal 5, establish an understanding of curriculum documents and instructional resources that would be used for planning. Our new teacher orientation is historically has been 5 days, and with the onset of Project Momentum, we condensed our new teacher orientation to 4 days so that our new teachers could join us for the Project Momentum kickoff with 200 staff members on the 5th day. So you'll see that day 1, we had technology distribution and training. Miss Loretta Zumbro gives everybody everything that they need to know and be able to do in regards to technology. Our campuses allowed for tours and rooms and HR policy that was happening, and here's how you get your keys, etc. Day 2 was Ready, Set, Go, and then also some choice workshops for our veteran teachers. Ready, Set, Go really worked with our new teachers on procedures and routines and expectations, and how do you set yourself and your students up for success immediately. Day 3, setting up classrooms and curriculum and instruction resources. And then day 4 was a celebration of learning with lots of choice workshops and our kickoff. Our differentiation by experience, again, our new teachers went to the Ready, Set, Go, as well as choice workshops. Our experienced teachers had a lot of different choice workshops that they could choose from. And then our special services also had special education and counselor workshops that were differentiated for their needs. When thinking about goal number 1, here are some things that some people said. Best NTO and best district I've ever been a part of. Skip, skip, skip. Everyone had a smile on their faces and was willing to answer any questions. You'll see on the left-hand side, we did survey all of our new teachers. So 41 participants strongly agreed that they felt welcomed and supported out of 45 total responses. Here's a question of all, a question. Here's a picture of a lot of support that our teachers received from not only our technology department, where they were getting their Chromebooks and laptops, but also our HR department. You'll see Malia Collins over there checking some new teachers in. Goal number 2 was to ensure that they had enough time in their classrooms to prepare. So on day 2, they had approximately 3 hours. On day 3, 4 hours. And on day 4, 3 hours. Some things that they appreciated most, getting time to set up their classrooms, waiting on some furniture. I'll let you guess where that came from. And also almost having everything, but I know I'm going to get support where needed. Here are some of our new teachers setting up their campuses. Classrooms on their campuses. They could probably set up a campus too. Goal number 3, providing professional development to meet individual needs and interests of our incoming teachers. Here are some things that were stated. They gave me new tools to be successful in the classroom, the Kagan and Ready, Set, Go trainings, a lot of great examples and ideas. I've absolutely loved the training that I've been able to attend, and you can read the rest. Some examples of our choice workshops: EL strategies, student discourse, K4 math talks, K3 narrative writing, Kagan 101, special ed support, and technology tips and tricks. Again, just some more photos of our amazing new teachers. Goal number 4, which was providing breakfast and lunch to increase opportunities to build connections among peers. Every day, our teachers were provided with breakfast and or lunch, and I will just give a huge shout out to our parent-teacher organizations that donated for West Star and Las Brisas and Liberty, and everyone did a donation, as well as our administrators in the back, who I asked to also donate, and our cabinet members. Everybody contributed to make this successful for our new teachers. Food is very important to them. Goal number 5, establish an understanding of the curriculum documents and instructional resources that they use for planning. I have the materials and resources I need to start the school year. 28 participants felt they strongly agreed, and we did have some participants that felt like they disagreed. So here they are looking at some curriculum documents. This may indicate that we need a little bit more information particular to this particular goal. So I wonder if when we were condensing our new teacher orientation, if we should have put in more time for curricular resources. I do think, though, that they did receive more time at their campuses during returning teacher week, but that's something for us to take into consideration for next year. Just some overall celebrations I wanted to share with you. There was a balance of training, district support, building support, good energy level, and motivating. It was beneficial to go from two different campuses and help me learn my way around the district, and to meet with more people than just my immediate team. Loved the food, told you that was important to them, and great mixture of getting to know staff and workshops allowed for individual knowledge. Here's another photo. And finally, next steps. We want to share our feedback that we received and comments with administration and coaches, so they can see exactly what was said by their new teachers at their sites. Ask for recommendations about this year's schedule from our site leaders, analyze successes and suggested refinements, and then work with the educational services team to refine new teacher orientation for next year. I think it's important that the governing board knows that we don't stop supporting new teachers. So this past year, we worked to develop an induction program with our instructional coaches to provide ongoing support designed to meet the needs of our new teachers throughout the school year. We want to increase teacher retention by building community and developing their proficiency. And we are designing 6 90-minute sessions. They're appropriately scheduled throughout the year. They'd be taught by our instructional coaches as well as administrators and ed services. And here are some possible topics: parent communication. We know that new teachers especially get a little bit nervous when they are preparing for parent-teacher conferences, and want to make sure that they've communicated with parents along the way so that that's not the first time that they are having parent communication. Lesson planning, classroom community and management, differentiation, organizational systems, Kagan strategies. If you're not familiar with Kagan strategies, that's really just really tight engagement strategies. And then it says engagement right there. And I'll open it up for any questions.
Paul?
Just a couple. Thank you very much for putting that all together. I have a question about the intensive program in the summer, especially the phonics. I know that the state model has an expectation of a minimum number of trained people on each campus as far as the phonics program. I'm assuming because we had such a good turnout and such a good presentation that we have met that requirement. Is that correct?
I think you're referring to the dyslexia training.
You are correct.
Okay. And no, that would not necessarily meet the requirement, but there is an extension of that dyslexia training for 2022.
Okay.
One person per campus, K3.
And also in the summer program, I know that there were a variety of students that we were hoping to invite, ones that we thought would benefit most and ones that parents thought would benefit as well. And so we had a number of groups that we were looking at. Were we able to pretty much get all the people we thought would benefit the most from this there?
I believe we were. We reached out several times offering students and parents the opportunity to send their student to summer school.
So you feel that those students that most would benefit were there?
Absolutely, they were invited.
I think the key difference, Ms. Bixler, is they were invited and given the opportunity, but as they spoke before, there were families who were taking vacations and maybe had been offered the opportunity that weren't able to come. So we did not get 100% of all of the students offered the opportunity to come to summer school, but a nice turnout, more than we've had in recent years for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, and summers are hard. There's a lot of reasons not to participate. So good. I'm glad that you had what you felt was a good turnout. That's great.
And we're also hoping to refine that so that maybe if we do all the summer school in June and we invite the siblings to come as well, that maybe we'd even bump up the participation a little bit more.
The sibling idea is a terrific idea, I think. And finally, one last question. You have a number of things in place as far as new teacher orientation and so on. I really applaud the program you put together. I thought that was really well done. Do the schools have mentor teachers that work with the new teachers? Do we have an assigned mentor for each one of our teachers? Is that something we do?
I don't know that we officially have assigned mentor teachers. However, I would look to the back with some people shaking their heads and saying, yes, some of them have veteran teachers that they assign to their newer teachers. Our instructional coaches are also a direct support to our new teachers.
I've seen some districts that really had a lot of success, and fortunately we're not one where retention of quality teachers is an issue, but in some districts where there were, the addition of a mentor teacher for the new teachers, even if they were just new to the campus, not new to teaching, just new to the campus, everybody had a mentor. And that seemed to make a big difference as far as retention of the quality teachers. So thank you very much.
Michael? Mr. President, I have a couple questions. If we can go back to slide number 5. We're going to start the timer, see how long it takes you to get there.
Exactly.
What's the percentage? Keep going. Keep going. Right there. So actually go one more ahead. So there seems like there's a fairly significant difference in the second grade data results and the third grade data results as it relates to the increase their score in oral reading fluency. Do we know why that number is so different between those two grades? Or has there been any thought to, or is that just something that's a natural trend that might happen at that grade level?
There could be several factors for why that there's a little bit of a discrepancy. But one is the further you go, the higher your reading level is, and if you tend to be further behind. So it's hard to make up that gap in skills. They're higher level with syllabication, using all the cueing systems, retaining the content knowledge, all apply at a higher level at the third grade level.
So if I'm understanding correctly, though, that might be the separation where they're starting to fall further behind?
Absolutely. And it depends on the makeup. Like they said, we invited all the students that were below level that fell within a range on the data, but it could have been the lower end that came for third grade and a little bit of a higher end that came for second grade. It wasn't really apples to apples where they were performing for reading.
Okay, so I don't know how deep we can get into it here, but I'm just concerned. I'd like to see the district look at bringing that 58%. That's a solid, not very good. So I think we need to identify those students, and hopefully we've got a plan in place. Ms. Camp's shaking her head. Yes, she's taking you. She's answering for you. But, oh, she said no, you're in the hot seat now. So I just want to make sure that we have a plan in place, because as to your point, as kids start to fall off a little bit, we don't
Yes.
want that to happen here at Liberty.
The good data supporting third grade is that they are increasing in their phonics task skills, which will help them readily problem solve those trickier, higher content words as they increase in their reading ability. And one positive also, this was all done in 11 days.
Right. I understand it, and I don't want to take away from that 11 days. There is good achievement there. I just make sure when we saw those numbers between second and third grade, I just wanted to make sure we had a plan. Sometimes everything else looked good, and then whoops, what did we miss there?
Absolutely.
So, the only other question I have is on, and just kind of a comment on slide 12. Those numbers looked really good. I would just like to see our district continue to push to make that all 45 teachers feeling welcome. They are very good, and you should be very proud, but just a note that we want to make that all 45. And it was interesting because there was another slide too, that there was another one strongly disagree. So I don't know if we have one person we missed or if those are two separate people, but I think those numbers kind of tell a tale in itself, but very good to you guys, and great job for what you did. I did talk to a few parents whose children participated and they were well, and I did hear from some teachers that also like the back to school plans that you guys did. So thank you.
I just want to thank everybody that was involved in the summer school for giving up summer and working hard, and special thanks to the kids. I'm sure they're watching right now, and for giving up their summer. I'm sure they gave up some Nickelodeon. If they still watch that, I don't know. And thank you to the thank you to the PTOs for helping with the new teacher orientation and making our teachers feel welcome. I just appreciate everything that everyone's doing for our kids.
For me, just hearing from some parents whose children attended those 11 days, they saw huge increase in their abilities. To be able to do something like that in 11 days really is encouraging of what can happen over a full year, right? So, thank you. Enrollment and staffing report. Dr. Schuff.
President Aguirre, members of the board. In the packet, you see a document that we use to track what is our enrollment by grade, by class. However, that information does not include withdrawals of students at this point if we haven't received any requests for records. So we really are in a holding pattern at this time to determine what is our actual enrollment shaping up to be, and we won't really know solid information till after the 10th day. So one of the strategies we use is we ask principals and staff to provide us class section by class section, how many students actually showed up on those days. So we do see that discrepancy. We expect somewhere between 5 and 10%, and we're seeing that discrepancy between the number of students showing up and then those that that are actually enrolled. So I think, and when you look at this report, we watch very closely on a daily, sometimes AM and PM meetings on staffing and enrollment over the last 10 days. And throughout the summer, just really monitoring any of those classes that we anticipate where there's a lot of growth. I would say over the weekend before school, I think we enrolled at least 100 students. There was a difference between Saturday and Monday, and a couple of days before that, we saw another, about 100 students. So it rose very, very quickly. And then, so we've got some, I call them hotspots, and we are working directly with the principals to identify, did the students come in as high as what these enrollment numbers are showing? Do we need to do staffing changes right away? So in some of those cases, the answer is yes. We were adding additional staffing right up to the first day of school. In some places, we have some positions that are posted in the effort to make those changes, and some we're just still watching. So just took a few notes here this afternoon at our last staffing meeting, and let me pull those up. So an example, you see a hotspot of freedom at the second grade. That position is posted, and the applicants have been forwarded to the principal. Third grade, also, the applicants have been forwarded to the principal. Sixth grade, we actually have 65 students instead of 68. Those are bigger numbers, but we are just holding to see how that falls out. Liberty Elementary, we have a second grade with one teacher. It shows 2 teachers. So on the first day, we thought we'd be adding a second teacher right away. The principal advised to hold with just 1 teacher because we are only seeing the most students we've seen since school started is 27. So that's right at our upper limit. We'll be watching that one closely, and likely we'll end up adding another second grade teacher. 7th grade at that school, it shows 104 students enrolled. The highest enrollment in terms of actual attendance at school was 96. So again, that's at the upper end, but it's not over just yet. And 7th and 8th grade is very difficult to hire for and requires big changes in the overall master schedule. So we're going to watch that one before making a quick decision. Las Brisas Academy, 7th grade, they had 66 enrolled. There's 63 present. So again, just watching there. 8th grade, 73 actually has 67. That has been posted. They have an applicant, and then we're also watching to see if that goes over. Rainbow Valley is up in kindergarten to 52 enrolled and 49 actual. So we anticipate we're going to need to add there as well. So that's just an overall update of how we're watching that, and we'll continue to watch it daily. Some of the positions have filled in with our long-term subs. That's been the beauty of having that system in place. They're already hired, they're already vetted. They know the campus typically, and they're able to jump in and start the year. In some cases, those will just continue as the classroom teacher, and they'll hire a new long-term substitute. And in some cases, that will be a temporary position until a staff member can be hired. Any questions from the board for enrollment?
Do we anticipate any kind of increase after Labor Day? Has it been traditional, we see?
I'm looking back at the principals or the HR to see if anybody sees. I think we may be past that season when, school started after Labor Day. We've got maybe some out-of-state folks coming in who are used to seeing it come after Labor Day. We also I think some of our schools are waiting to see if we have any influx with migrant students coming in a little bit later. So I think it's probably more that than the actual day of Labor Day.
Paul? I'm sorry, Michael?
Mr. President, I just have one question. Do we have a number of how many students or families that we have turned away from our schools that are out of district, particularly the Liberty campus?
There are very few. I know of at least one or two at the second grade. We're watching that one pretty closely because if we if we add an additional teacher, we have the ability to say yes to those new families. One of which has middle school students and has a second grader at Blue Horizons and looking to keep the family together and is late for open enrollment.
Okay, if you could maybe just in the next board report, let us know numbers, I would appreciate that.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Jamie?
No questions.
So I've heard from some parents, and I just want to make sure that I'm kind of clear in what I say, is we really don't know where we land. Even though it is 10 days, we're really not knowing where it settles out really until we're about 3 weeks into the school year. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is, okay, we're going to start cutting these classes in half or whatever it may be, bringing on teachers, correct?
I think you get a better idea. I think over this course of the year, we anticipate that we would still continue to increase based on all the growth in the community. Particularly, we get to a place where we're not going to add any more staff because we are maxed out with our budget and staffing. So if we get sufficient growth in student enrollment, that growth allows us the added capacity and budget to be able to hire some additional staff members.
And are we on track of where we had assumed enrollment would be to where we are now, or are we behind, or are we ahead?
Well, it depends on whether you look at the enrollment or the actual kids who have come. If you look at the enrollment, we are well ahead of where we would expect to have been by the end of the year. So I think really the question is better answered just in probably another week.
Okay.
Have a better idea.
Override facts, Ms. Basinger.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. Tonight, we wanted to share some override facts for both our board and our community. It's still not displaying right. Of importance to note with regards to the override is not new to the district or new to our funding resources. An override has actually been a part of the district budget since 1983. When the conversation comes up to live within our means, we do live within our budget. The challenge is that those monies have not necessarily kept up and actually have become less over time. This graph shows dates ranging from 1992 to 2019. The gold or tan line, maybe orange on the screen, sorry, represents the U.S. average per pupil spending, and the blue line represents the Arizona average per pupil spending. And so if you note at the very early on in 1992, the gap was less than $1,000. In 2019, the gap is greater than $5,000 or 35%.
Per student,
It's per pupil spending, yes, sir.
$5,000
Yes.
per child.
Comparable to the U.S. average.
Thank you.
That is correct. So in November 2016, the voters approved a continuation of the 10% maintenance and operations override. That authorization is for the full 10% for the first 5 years and phases down 1/3 in year 6 and another 1/3 in year 7, completely eliminating after that. The district is currently in year 5 of the authorization. If the election this November does not pass, the override will reduce by 1/3 next year, 2022-23, and another 1/3 in 23-24. If the override election passes, the override will not phase down and will continue at the 10% next year. The funding provided in FY21 was $2.1 million and is about the same for this year. So you can imagine we'll lose $700,000 next year. $1.4 million following year, and after that, the 2.1 will be completely eliminated out of our budget. The next two slides got a little out of order on me, but they're representative again of that per pupil spending comparison. This is just another slide representing that. Arizona historically has been between the 46th and ranked 46th, somewhere between 46 and 49 in the nation. This slide just again represents that 35% difference, less than the national average spending per pupil. Coming back to the area or idea of living within our means, the first thing that may come up to some minds is just take the money from your administrative costs. The district has a long history of spending less on administrative costs. As you can see, the Auditor General Report of school spending, Liberty spends less than the state average and is among the lowest of our peers. The district also spends 70% of our monies on classroom spending. In fact, we're the highest in classroom spending among the 14 districts in our peer group. Looking at what the override funds, the override helps retain and attract quality teachers and staff. It helps maintain small class sizes, and the continuation of the override will continue instructional programs for children. There's a lot more information on this slide, but it is in the board packet so everybody can see. There's some facts on the 10%, how much it'll actually cost homeowners, and important dates. 100% of the funds go to teacher compensation and benefits. So the override funds 100% of our music, art, and PE teachers. It funds classroom teachers that helps the district maintain lower class size. It provides stipends for instructional coaches, and additionally, it supports compensation increases. Overall, the override helps to support the competitive salaries for teachers and staff. It actually funds 14% of all of our teacher positions, which is a pretty significant percentage. The override can only be spent on the voter intended purpose. Promises were made when the election passed, and promises were kept. To maintain small class sizes, our commitment to voters was an average of 27-1. The actual class size is closer to 25-1, and in many cases last year it was 24-1. The district 3-year retention average is 87%. The override supports programs for kids. Passing the override continuation will maintain all-day kindergarten, maintain band and music, maintain physical education classes, maintain art programs. Oops, sorry. Let me go back here. We estimate that the proposed continuation of the override will cost homeowners an estimated tax rate of 71 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. So the proposed continuation of the override is estimated to be $10.43 a month, or $126 per year for the average home value in our district of $176,790. If you're looking at that 71 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, I don't believe we have this in our district, but if you were looking at a $100,000 home and you took that 71 cents tax rate, it would be $71 a year. So if you had a higher value, multiply that times 2, multiply that times 3, that would be the value or the cost of the override. These are the scheduled dates of presentations and meetings with staff, parent, PTO, and community meetings. So we have quite a few meetings lined up to talk about this information, answer questions, and provide information. And some important dates to remember. The last day to register to vote is October 4th. According to the Maricopa County elections, ballots are scheduled. I'm sorry, I thought I had this cleaned up. Sorry, Dr. Schuff. According to the Maricopa County elections, ballots are scheduled to be mailed on October 4th. Election day is, well, let me start over. I'm so sorry. The last day to register to vote is October 4th. Ballots are being mailed out on October 4th. The last day to request early ballots is October 22nd, and election day is November 2nd. The Jerry Rovey District Facility will be a ballot drop location starting on October 6th and running through Election Day. It will also be a replacement ballot center starting on October 25th and running through Election Day. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Jamie?
No questions for me.
Michael?
I just want to go back, and it's not my intention to put anybody on blast, but I still think we need to up our marketing game on this. And we say programs for kids, but what does that mean exactly to the voter that doesn't know? We kind of use the same tactics and words that we've used in the past. And I think it would behoove us to, in addition to the community meetings, I don't really know how those are going to be structured yet, but to really dig in with people and find out what resonates home. What do they think is going to entice their neighbor who doesn't have a child in school to vote yes for this? I just feel like we need to do that. And maybe that is for the district to look at a marketing firm that can help with that a little bit more. But this is important, and this is kind of to the time of do or die. Taking a $700,000 hit, if I go back to about third grade math when we start rounding, that's $1 million. And at the end of the day, I just feel like that $700,000 is going to be closer to $1 million in lost revenue that comes in, earned revenue, however you want to call that. It's just going to be, it's going to be more than this. It's going to hurt us more than $700,000, as if that's not painful enough. So I would really encourage us to look deeper. And the slide that you had in the very beginning that showed the gap, I think that is critical for people to see. That's a slide that I honestly don't remember seeing in that format. We see a lot of slides, so pardon me if you've shown that before, but that tells the tale. And I think that resonates with people when they see how low Arizona really is. I'm sure that's been somewhere before, but maybe it's the colors. Maybe it's that nice orange and blue. I think we've got some Blue Horizons colors going there. But that really tells a tale, and I think that needs to be on some of our marketing material to drive that home to people, that we're slipping farther and farther behind. And so that would be my feedback for that. And then my only other question is, we're a drop-off center till 4:30, but most ballot places stay open later, and I think we should probably do our best to try to stay open to attract people that are coming home after work and maybe drop off those ballots. 4:30 is not a very convenient time for most people coming home from work. And in this election, this override election, we're going to need every single ballot we can get.
The drop-off box is out there.
Is it just outside secure? Okay.
It's just the replacement ballot center is from 8 to
Okay.
4:30, so that's so they can come in and actually request a
We
replacement.
may even want to have a couple extra days. From 8 to 4:30 is right when everybody works and they're not here. So I think we should maybe see if we can do something better hours, a few days. And if we need a volunteer, I think it behooves the whole board to learn how to be volunteers at a polling site or whatever we need to do to come make that happen. Thank you.
I'll find out if that's possible.
Paul?
I have no questions.
I think one thing that'll help is people not campaigning against an override. That's just my thought on that. Item 5.1, governing board updates. Does anyone have any updates? Paul?
Yes, I really want to thank the faculty and staffs at the 3 schools I had a chance to visit on parent night. I got a chance to go out to Rainbow Valley and see that campus, and I got a chance to go out to Freedom Elementary and saw their campus. And gosh, I apologize to Estrella Mountain. I tried to get over there in time, but I got there just in time to watch you close it down, and only got to talk to a couple of the teachers, so I'm sorry I didn't get a longer stay there. But I really enjoyed the energy I saw on all the campuses. The parent turnout was great. The numbers were huge, and the teachers looked ready. There's something about being in public education. There's a start and a stop to it. And the energy and enthusiasm and just the thrill of being there at the start makes it worth it. So again, I want to thank all those campuses I had a chance to go by and see, and I hope to go by again. So thank you very much for hosting me that night. And it was hot.
Michael?
A couple things. One, I just, something kind of a personal note, but August every year in the state of Arizona is Drowning Impact Awareness Month. So I just remind everybody to watch their kids around water, learn the ABCs of water safety, and wearing purple tonight for that cause. Got to attend the teacher welcome event over at Estrella High School. I think that's the first time that it was done there, and what I heard in the past, the staff was packed into one school like sardines, and they got to spread out in a beautiful facility over there at Estrella High School. So thank you to our staff for putting that together, and to the high school for allowing us to use their facility. Certainly was nice, and it was great to see everybody there with a little bit of breathing room and all their school t-shirts in colors. It was great. I got to attend to Meet Your Teacher Nights, Blue Horizon, Rainbow Valley, and got into Liberty just right at the last little bit. But it was a great night. Certainly was impressed by the number of parents that showed up to that event. There was some exciting times in our district with the schools opening. No good deed goes unpunished, and I got invited back for the first day of school by Blue Horizons principal and Rainbow Valley's principal, Norma Sanchez and Samantha Bartlett. They're in the back, they can stand up. You guys made me work in direct traffic, so I'm gonna make you stand up and say what a great job you did on the opening day. Go ahead. For those that don't know you. Don't get in these ladies' way on the first day of school, you'll get ran over. It was truly an impressive event to see them doing everything that they did, and I would list it, but we'd be here till the next board meeting. So just a great job. And then also over at Rainbow Valley, Nurse Chelsea was there, and watching her interact with kids, a lot of young kids, just a great performance by all. And I feel like we're in really good hands at those campuses. So kudos to you guys, and thank you. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say.
Jamie?
I'd like to thank site or district administration for the invite to the opening of school celebration. And I feel awful, I don't have a name for this teacher, but the performance that the kids did at that event was wonderful, and I was really impressed. As a parent, my child doesn't go to that school, but as a parent, we co-parent with the teachers, and we place a lot of trust in those teachers. And she was in the front, and she was singing along with them, and she was smiling, and she was giving them all the hand gestures, and to me, she modeled exactly what a coach should be, and I could just see the relationship that she was building with the kids. And so I was very impressed with that, and I apologize so much. I'm going to try to find out her name, but
Monica Landash.
Monica Landash. I knew it was Monica, but I didn't want to say that and get it wrong. So thank you, Monica, for just being a spectacular coach to the kids.
I have nothing. 6.1, do we have any calls to the public? Do we have the clock queued up? Because I'm not seeing it on the screen in the back wall. Okay, first up, Robert Avila. And before you get started, Mr. Avila, just so everyone knows, everyone gets 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, no offense, I want everything to be fair. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you for taking the time. This is on 8.9. In encouraging the vaccinations. I'm not going to take very long. I just have a couple concerns, couple questions on this part of this agenda. Is as a parent, I'm a little concerned on why we are encouraging and advertising the COVID vaccine in the schools. I guess I'm kind of confused why we are just doing this vaccine and not all the vaccines. As a parent, I suggest that we kind of leave this up to mom and dad and the medical providers to kind of encourage and coach and, get our kids if we want them vaccinated or not. I don't think in the school setting we should be doing this. And then why are we just, kind of like I said, why are we just encouraging the COVID vaccine? Why aren't we encouraging all the vaccines? You know, I have two children at Westar under the age of 12. Obviously, they're not eligible for the vaccine. A question as a parent is, you know, are my two kids under the age of 12 going to be subject to that, you know, advertising, encouraging? You know, how's the school going to, you know, differ, you know, the 12 and up, the 12 and under? How are you guys going to split that? Is kind of my biggest concern when it comes to the vaccination. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avia. Sage Harper.
Okay, teachers have a role to ensure their classroom is open for discussion and to encourage informed decision-making. It is essential for a student to have exposure to all sides of an argument in order to create a well-informed opinion and develop their own ideas. Hence why it is important for our teachers to focus on teaching subjects that fall under their expertise, allowing them to teach all sides of that topic. In order for children to feel safe, all biasness must be left at the door. Our students should be given factual information covering all sides of the topic and any tools necessary for the student to make their own educated decisions. I start with that info today because it is important for us to remember that opinions and views are important, but they are also personal. But in our teaching of children, they can create confusion and biased decision-making. I would like to quickly touch on the topic of campus vaccine clinics and encouraging 12 and older students and staff to be vaccinated. First and foremost, there are more than enough vaccination clinics or vaccine clinics that offer free and readily available vaccine options in the area. Our schools should not be a place where everyone who is not part of the school can come and get vaccinated. That kind of sounds like a COVID risk to me. I am not here to tell you why you should not get the vaccine, or what the statistics are of those that get it versus those that don't. But what I am here to say is I believe this is not the school's position, right, or responsibility to encourage a vaccine that they cannot guarantee that my child needs or guarantee will not harm them. That being said, we need to keep all of our encouraging words focused on classroom subjects, not health subjects that we are not qualified to speak about. So I ask publicly that all teachers and personnel to please stop telling my children your opinion on the vaccine. Now regarding SEL, which is social emotional learning, which is defined on Google as the process in which young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, establish and maintain supportive relationships, etc. Those are all skills that everyone that's listening probably thinks, yes, that is great to teach. But if we each start giving our own opinion on what we believe those skills look like, there may be some confusion and chaos as we each are looking through our own lens of the way those words trigger and make us feel. That's why these types of tools are ones parents work so hard to give their children. As a parent of 4 who is trying to teach my children and give them the tools to live in this very confusing world, I feel that if a teacher tries to do the same based on their feelings, they may conflict as they may not see the same as me. I know it is a very thin line to walk, but SEL material has nothing to do with learning math, science, ELA, art, physical ed, or sports. Teachers are not psychotherapists. Teachers have enough on their plate to do and not have the proper tools that therapists have
Thank you,
to help
Mrs.
navigate.
Harper. Jen Kimbrough.
Good evening. I'd like to reference agenda number 8.9, and basically I'd like to ask the board a few questions in regards to recommending vaccinations before teachers or the board encourages COVID-19 vaccination, or really any vaccination at this rate. Do you fully understand the long-term ramifications of the vaccine? What is the approved legal status of the vaccine, and would a doctor consider it experimental? Can you provide details and assurances that the vaccine has been fully, independently, and rigorously tested against control groups and the subsequent outcome of those tests? Can you please advise a full list of the contents that compile and make up the vaccine that you are encouraging or proposing to encourage? Is this board prepared to take full legal and financial responsibility for all students who experience adverse reactions associated with the vaccine? Can you confirm in writing that the vaccination is not an experimental mRNA gene alternating therapy? Can you confirm that the vaccine will not harm in any way the students in the district or consequently make them more likely to contract COVID? I respectfully request that all medical conversations be had with students at home and that this school board continue to focus on instilling traditional academic knowledge. Thank you.
The board like to say anything? Hearing none. Moving on to consent agenda. Anyone want anything pulled from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull 7.9 personnel action items.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda except for item 7.9.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7.9.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approve unanimously. Okay. 7.9. Go ahead, Michael.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple concerns yet again. We have two more staff members who are tendering resignation, if I understand correctly. Again, leaving our district in a very precarious spot at this late in the game. And it is my understanding that, based off the letters, that these are medical, but there is no medical letter from a doctor or anything else. And again, as I came back at the last meeting, I am concerned that teachers are able to abandon children at this late in the game. If it's truly a medical issue, so be it. And I think the district, nobody will have a problem with that. But to just simply send in a letter that says, gotta go medical, at this late in the game is concerning to me. And I know we're addressing this later on tonight a little bit with a discussion, but again, I wanted to pull that off. Also, I received numerous phone calls over the position for an art teacher at Estrella, and I promised the parents that asked me that I would ask the questions of how long the job was posted, how many interviews were done, and how many applicants were received. I think it behooves us, and I have nothing negative to say about the candidates here, but there were many people in the public who did ask those questions, and I feel they do have a right to know. So those would be that would just be my question for some clarification on those.
Mr. Nuttall?
Mr. Todd, when we evaluate qualified applicants, at this point in time, we receive qualified applicants. We received one qualified applicant who is highly qualified to do the position. We followed all of our protocols. The position was posted for 5 days. An interview took place, a recommendation took place, references were checked, and we offered a contract subsequent to that. That's what is on the board this evening.
So we only had one applicant for.
We had one qualified applicant.
Is 5 days our normal time to post, or at this late in the game, do we need more time to get a full pool?
Yeah, we've had art positions posted for a really long time for the district-wide art positions. So we have a pool of applicants that have applied for art. So when we screen for qualified applicants. 5 days is our standard to post for positions. For leadership positions, as an example, we may post longer until the pool reaches a number of qualified applicants that we're looking to interview or go through the process. In this particular case, this meets that standard of 5 days.
Okay, so again, in all the time we've been posting for district-wide art positions, we've only had one highly qualified person.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Jamie? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve item 7.9.
Make a motion to approve 7.9.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve 7.9 personal action items. And we have a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously. General business. 8.1, discussion and consideration to approve fiscal year 2021-2022 annual school district expenditure budget revision number 1. Ms. Basinger.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, earlier information was presented regarding the fiscal year 21-22 annual school district expenditure budget revision 1. If there are any further questions, I would be happy to answer. If none, we would respectfully request your approval of the same.
Michael?
I have no questions unless you have a really tough one you would like us to answer.
So hearing no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve fiscal year 2021 to 2022 annual school district expenditure budget revision number 1.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve and we have a second. Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 8.2, discussion and consideration to approve Communications Director job description and revised organization chart. Mr. Nunnall.
Mr. President, members of the board, expectations for communications and public relations continue to increase within the district. As everybody's well aware, we're trying to manage multiple social media platforms, new website presence. We know that communication is critical for partnerships with families in the community, student safety, marketing, branding, recruitment of quality staff, and achievement of our district mission and vision. Tonight, we bring forward a proposal for you to approve the communications director job description, which would be a dedicated person for our marketing and communications to improve not only just the customer service, but our presence in the community and overall communication branding of our school district. District and school administrative staff will be expected to continue to market and communication efforts within the support of the centrally led communications director for consistency and coherence. The attached organizational directory is reflective of the position and the placement on the org chart. So we're requesting approval of this position this evening.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions. I think this is a very needed position in this district as we continue to grow and challenges of distance between campuses. It, to me, has been painfully evident for quite some time that we need this position. I do not think in the org chart it's in the right spot. I think it needs to have a dotted line and be up with the executive director's roles. It needs to be up top. This person is the face of this district, and in most cases, that's a direct dotted line, oftentimes straight off to the left of the superintendent's spot. Also, looking in this chart, I noticed one thing that we're missing on the org chart, and that is the governing board is at the top, but before that, and long before we're at the top, is the citizens of this district, and I think we need to add that as well. So I'd be open for some discussion on those, but This position should be a well-paid position. It has a lot of responsibility with increased hours, and I think it needs to be higher up. And again, just the other notice that I saw there on we forgot about our citizens on this org chart, and we need to remember that they are the ultimate boss in this district.
Jamie?
No questions.
I have no questions either. I'd entertain a motion to approve item 8.2.
I move that we approve the Communications Director job description revised organizational chart.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve and we have a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously. And I'm going to change it up just a little bit, because I know there's some people here who have children at home that they need to get home to. I'd like to move to item 8.5, discussion and consideration to approve ASBA political agenda. And if I could start out. This agenda is a culmination of all districts across the state. This is not a political agenda for Liberty Elementary School District. It is an agenda that every school district made suggestions and they got on the list. There are some things on there that I directly do not agree with, the way that they are presented in the format that they were presented on the pamphlet. And with that, that's, for me personally, I cannot get on board with the way that it's presented. Paul?
I agree with you, Mark, that there are not so much philosophical differences, but there's wording differences I have. I would have a difficult time getting behind this particular agenda.
Michael?
Mr. President, I would agree wholeheartedly that this is not a very good document. As I read it, the first thing that came to mind was I better pull out my bingo card and try to check off all the boxes. The scary part to this is they list a lot of things, but they don't say how they want to get to that. And that becomes very dangerous. I also didn't feel in the pamphlet that was sent out earlier that it was very well stated or explained. So for me, this would be a very, very hard no in support of this document.
Jamie, your thoughts?
By not approving it, what are we doing or saying?
We say that this doesn't reflect what Liberty thinks public education should be. And the individuals who Liberty Elementary asked to lobby on our behalf in public education at the state level.
And is this, can we edit this document to better reflect us, or this is either all or nothing?
That's correct.
I would yield to the other board members then.
What I will say is there is an opportunity that in the meeting that we have another agenda item, our delegate, when they go to the political meeting after the law conference, that at that point it can be addressed. Basically what this is this is saying as a board, yes, we agree with this. No, we do not. Our delegate will go on our behalf and will argue those points.
So we would approve this, and then we have an opportunity to pick and choose from this what we do support and what we don't.
If
Is
we
that
so choose,
accurate?
yes.
If that's the case, then I could support this.
Okay. So with that, I'd entertain a motion for item 8.5.
I'll make a motion to approve the ASBA political agenda.
And I second. All those in favor? Paul? Michael? Jamie?
Aye.
All those opposed? Paul?
Nay.
Michael?
Nay.
I am also a nay. Show that it failed. One more skip here, guys. Item 8.9, discussion and consideration to approve a resolution to encourage vaccinations.
And if I could start.
Oh,
Is that-
what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, what were you gonna say?
Did you have something that you wanted to say about previously?
No,
Okay.
for
Yep.
8.9.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jamie.
So, when this was first brought up, I had said I don't think we should discuss it. I didn't elaborate, but I feel like this is the last opportunity that we can choose to discuss it or not. I would like to be an example and not discuss this and not make a motion on it and let individuals make their own choices. I would like to just, the past year has been so controversial, so divisive for our school, for us, for the community. And to be honest, as a neighbor to everybody here and as a governing board member, I'm tired of the divisiveness. I don't think that we need it. Everyone's taking time away from their families. You could be, we're talking about social and emotional well-being for our families. Everybody could be with their kids, their families, making dinner, doing family things, but instead everybody's here because this is causing division. As an example, for us and the rest of the district, can we just not talk about it? Can we just let this die and no motion? So if we have to talk about it, we will, but that would be my recommendation, that we just let this drop. We
Can I
do that.
Can I comment in here, Mark? Do you mind? Jamie, do you mind if I say something here?
Absolutely.
It was my resolution that I asked to have put on the board agenda. And I do remember at the time you were virtually attending the meeting, but you did make the same comment then, that you were concerned that this, the emotional part of it, that would be better served if we were to wait on that now was not the best time to do that. I believe that the vaccinating is the greatest thing we can do for the greatest number of people for the least amount of harm. I feel that. And when this was originally done, we were a 5-member board. We are now a 4-member board. I really would like to see a discussion of this. But I don't think that a 4-member board would reflect, first of all of what we feel is strong in this district. It also, I don't believe, would allow for the robust kind of discussion that I think this topic deserves. So, saying that, I move that we table this
Before you, I'm sorry, Paul.
until we get a full membership in our board.
So there's a motion to table.
Can we discuss just a little bit further?
Yep, absolutely.
Paul, when I go see my family on Thanksgiving, we don't talk religion, we don't talk politics because it's gonna get controversial. And that's what, if you don't wanna have Thanksgiving now, you know, we'll have Thanksgiving later, and I don't wanna have this type of Thanksgiving. I want peace right now, you know, forever, really. And we're gonna have controversial discussions later, but this is just something that nobody, no organization is forcing us to talk about this. And to be clear, I don't want to talk about it personally now or in the future. I just don't think it's a topic. If for some reason the state comes or the federal government comes or something happens where we are forced to talk about this, we'll have that conversation. But I think this would be best left unsaid for now and in the future. I really feel that way. You're free to make your own decision, of course, but that's, I just wanted to preface that we don't talk about this.
I heard you. Thank you.
There's a motion still on the floor to table. Is there a second? So hearing no second, the motion to table fails. So with that, now we're discussing it again. Item 8.9 is still on the agenda. Does anyone have any further things to say? Hearing none?
Mr. Chairman, if you could give me a second, I want to come gather some thoughts. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution to encourage vaccination.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Nay.
Jamie?
Nay.
I am an aye. All those approve, or all those against? Michael?
I am against.
Jamie?
Nay.
Show that the motion was a tie, and therefore it fails. Okay. Item 8.3, discussion and consideration to approve district content PLC lead teacher job description. Mr. Nuttall.
Mr. President, members of the board, this evening we're requesting approval of the District Content PLC lead teacher job description in order to further increase leadership opportunities and provide increased support to content area teachers. District Content PLC teacher job description has been created, and funding for the stipend will be included as part of the Ed Services Maintenance and Operations budget with no increase to the overall budget.
Questions?
What, this particular position, how does that fit into the scheme of response to intervention and so on?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Kemp. This is under her Ed Services realm, not to put you on the spot, Ms. Kemp, but I think you know the specifics.
I've been wanting to use this microphone. It is a lead position where they would be supporting data analyzation of, it could potentially be response to intervention data. It could also be facilitating the content meetings of particularly our district content teams. So I don't know that it's going, because it's district-wide, it wouldn't be specific to necessarily the school level data at the RTI level. So I think it's a much bigger scale.
Michael, anything?
Mr. Chairman, it seems like every meeting we come back to, we have another position, and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with that. However, I have the trust of Ms. Camp that this is a needed position. It's a stipend of $800, so I don't think $800 is going to break our bank on this, but I would like to see in these positions some better reporting as to the successes and the justifications to continue the positions in the future.
Mr. President, Mr. Todd, this was a position that was discussed at length with the Budget Committee. It was also prioritized with the Governing Board back in February. So we've just delayed in bringing it forward until we had secure budget capacity for it.
Thank you. I understand. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I want to make sure that we're really watching these, and it seems like we're starting to get a little bit heavy sometimes at the top.
Mr. Todd, if I could just also mention, as a growing district and wanting to provide additional leadership opportunities for teachers that we feel could fill these voids and gain some additional leadership components. We do have some real high flyers in our district, and we want to continue to provide those opportunities for our teacher leaders to exhibit those leadership skills. And so when we continue to bring those forward, it's all with the intent, as I think everybody in the room would agree, is for student achievement. This provides that opportunity. And all of our positions are with the same intent.
I understand. As I said, I'll vote in favor of it.
Jamie?
No questions.
I have no questions. If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve item 8.3.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve item 8.3, the district content PLC lead.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that approved unanimously. Item 8.4, discussion and consideration to approve school year calendar. Dr. Schuff?
Mr. President, I will defer to Mr. Nuttall, who led the work on this.
Mr. President, members of the board, back in May, district administration, we met with members of the Buckeye Union High School District's cabinet team to review their next calendaring process for the next 3 years. Buckeye Union High School District had met with Buckeye Elementary District, and so it was kind of a triad of conglomerate there to put our heads together to continue to build continuity amongst the community, to try and make sure that our calendars were as aligned as possible. I think it's well known, being an elementary district, that there's the high school district. We want to try and build that communication, collaboration. It starts with the calendar. Buckeye Union High School District needed to only approve a one-year calendar at this point in time, simply because their calendars are oftentimes at the high school level driven by the testing, such as ACT and SAT. And so they weren't comfortable with going beyond this one particular year. So in alignment with them, we are recommending the next school calendar for the 2022-23 school year. We also met with a committee of our folks, several parents and employees, some of which served multiple duties within the district, to bring forward several perspectives. And so the recommendations that we have before you on our calendar reflect their feedback as well. So we have alignment from all of our surrounding districts for this next year. Early release days, spring breaks, and holidays to align with families so they're not doubling up on weeks off and things of that nature. The recommended one-year calendar, it's important to mention, meets all of our statutory requirements for instructional minutes. So we're well over. Ms. Camp a couple weeks ago shared instructional minutes. We're well over the statutory requirements, so just wanted to make sure we pointed that out as well.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve item 8.4.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the school year calendar 22-23.
Second.
I have a motion to approve, and we have a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. We are skipping 8.5 because we already did that. Moving on to item 8.6, discussion and consideration to approve an ASBA delegate. So typically, it'll be the Saturday of the law conference. It's pretty exciting. They don't provide lunch. They have limited juice. They run out of crackers.
So inviting.
So with that, basically, it's up to you all on how you want to do it. If you guys want to nominate somebody, we can. I'm just going to throw it out there that I have been, and I have no interest in going this year.
Well, that sounds like an invite for a motion.
I can hardly wait.
So with that,
Well, I was planning on attending the law conference anyway.
okay,
I would be happy to represent us.
okay. So Paul nominated himself. Anyone else?
I just want this remembered for next year.
Mr. Chairman, I'll nominate Jamie Miller to attend. He's begging to go. He keeps kicking me under the table. And there's cracker crumbs down here too.
Jamie, are you okay with that?
I'll eat a big breakfast.
I'll bring you something.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor, go ahead.
Can you just confirm that you're allowed to send more than, I think you can send 2 delegates, but only 1 can vote on behalf of the district, is my remembrance. So just, sorry.
Thank you for the correction. I apologize. When I went, there was so much enthusiasm about the second person going that there was only 1 person who went. So, yes, I do apologize that yes, 1, and I stand corrected that Dr. Schuff is right. 1 delegate is the voting member, and then the other delegate is on deck, if you will.
Is the influencer.
Second one brings the food
Right.
and drink.
So, who would like to be?
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'll arm wrestle you. I'm just kidding.
So with that, I'd like to nominate Jamie as the voted position. I think, and obviously Paul will be there too.
Is that a motion?
It was a
I'll
motion.
second.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second as presented of what we just discussed, with Jamie being the voting member, Paul being the on deck, if you will, which a lot of districts actually have more than 1. But so all those in favor, Paul?
Well, I was kind of hoping to gather all that food just for me, but I vote aye.
Michael?
Aye. Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that Jamie and Paul will be going. Good luck.
Mark and I'll be there with food in the parking lot when you're done.
Paul and I can carpool and talk about vaccinations. I meant that in a friendly way.
Back to the arm wrestle.
Item 8.7, discussion of first reading of revisions to policies, policy advisory numbers 680 to 692, 690. There's a lot.
They're on record.
695 to 702, 704 to 711.
President Aguirre, members of the governing board, our legislature was very busy this last year. And that has had a result of having a number of recommended changes to governing board policy by Arizona School Boards Association based on statute changes in statute. And so the ones that we're bringing forward today is really all but about 3 of the policy advisors, the big larger group that came forward. We're holding on to a few that will need a little more customization for our school district. These are really just kind of the cookie cutter, what did they say to do with the statute according to legal opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and read off the names of the actual policy numbers, just for the record. BDF, BEDD, BEDH, BIB. We have also included, for your reference, BIB-R, which is the regulation. Administration makes changes to those, but I'd like to, be public about those regulation adjustments as well. Policy DIE, DJ, EEAEA, and then another regulation. And then policy GCB, policy GCF, GCH, GDB, GDF, IHAMB, IHAMD, policy IJ, and I did skip there. There's a regulation in there for IHAMB-R, IJJ, another regulation for IKE, policy IMB, policy JFAA, and JFAA, but there's an exhibit just for your information, another exhibit, policy JFAB, another exhibit. It shows the deletion of regulations. So there are 3 regulations the district has over face masks. They are regulations, so administratively, we have already removed those. Those show up in the students section of policy, the staff section of policy, and also K where it's parents and visitors, that section. So those have already been removed. And then policy K, policy JKD, policy JKE, JLCB, and JLF, and KB. So that is a big, hefty list of them. If there are any in that list that you feel like you really haven't had time to review and you would like to just have that in an alternate first reading, we can certainly do so. Again, these are just kind of the standard recommendations from attorneys related to statute. So you will see all of these show up again in a second reading unless between now and then there's some type of recommended change that you all make or feedback you give to us here in the meeting. Our own attorney reviews all of these as well, and if they have any concerns over what ASBA has recommended, typically they do not. It's pretty solid by the time it comes to us.
Questions? Okay, so just to be clear, so this came up once before, that we have until the second reading, if there is changes that we want, that those will get sent in and those will be on the agenda when this topic comes back up. And then if it's a significant change that you are asking for as an individual board member, then at that point it'll go back and then it'll be vetted legally and then come back through. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the members of the public that are here tonight and watching, we've had some discussion and some feedback from the public on family life education, which is policy IHAMB. There are some changes to this. These are all, from my reading of them, are all statutorily mandatory, basically. But I would encourage the public to read those and email the board if they have any questions, concerns, or thoughts. But most all of this policy, as I read over them, is mandated from the state, and there's not much we can do for it other than approve it because it's essentially become law. They've just passed a law down there that says we have to pass this. So, but I think as a board, we are always very interested in public comment and public feedback. There's a lot here and different opinions, so I would just encourage the public to look at those and let the board know if there's any concerns.
And along that line, and besides the executive summary that lists I will call it a table of contents, if you will, the actual attachment does show red line is the strike through, blue as the new information. So, that provides a better context of what is changing.
Okay, thank you. Item 8.8, discussion on the impact of board approval of resignations from contracted certified staff in consideration of liquidated damages for future contract language. Jamie, I'll open it up to you.
I understand why we're going to discuss this. I don't like that a teacher would resign so close to school starting or even after a contract is signed, but I do understand that things come up. Ultimately, and I know everybody in here is a parent, and as a parent myself, I don't think I would want my child in a classroom with a teacher that does not want to be there. And so that's why I don't have as much of an issue with that they resign, letting them leave. But I do think it's worth having a conversation about what consequences may happen from that. And I feel torn because on this side of it, and I've been in the classroom and I've had a contract presented to me in like December, January, February, and that's hard to predict. You know, what am I going to do? There's just a lot of decisions to be made. So I think coming up with a solution to, I'm off the top of my head, if they sign very early, I don't know, what would the consequence look like versus if they signed closer? And maybe Jason, you can chime in, or maybe give us better understanding of what that looks like. Because from a teacher's perspective, you almost feel like forced, like, man, I better sign this soon. And I know we give incentives. I believe we give incentives for signing early. But that's, I mean, ultimately that's my perception is, as a parent, what type of quality education is that child going to get if that teacher doesn't want to be there? Are they just going to wait out that school year and do the bare minimum, the absolute? I mean, they're leaving anyway. And I assume too that we don't give any type of recommendation if another school calls because they're going there, then we would tell them that they resigned. So at least there's that. But I certainly don't want to force a teacher to stay. In addition to that, I don't want to be a district that has a reputation of going after teachers. There are school districts that have those reputations, and the loyalty is low, the turnaround is high, morale could improve. I just don't want that reputation for us, that if you come work here and something comes up and the board doesn't agree with you, you know, we talk about medical reasons. Some person's medical reason might be great to them and it's less to me. Who am I to say that that's not qualifying? So it's a very complex situation.
Michael?
Dr. Schuff, I think maybe just prior to COVID, you had talked to the Teacher Advisory Council and they had supported a liquidated damages clause. I might ask again what the feedback is. More importantly, I think I'd like to know, not from the teachers, but from the principals who have to rush to fill these positions and oftentimes may really feel the squeeze of trying to fill a position at the last second. So I certainly agree with what Jamie is saying. I don't think any of us want a teacher who doesn't want to be here in a classroom. But on the same token, we have people who sign a contract and just because they want to go, they write medical on it. And I'm not trying to make an accusation that the teachers tonight did that, but we need to balance this somehow. And I think a tiered approach, if Jamie is right, we kind of push people to sign early and by giving them bonuses because we want to get them so we're not at the last second. I think that's true. We want to get them locked in. I don't want to ever prevent any staff member from having the opportunity to go somewhere that's happier for them, that's better for their family life. Things do come up. I certainly understand that. But at the last second, it puts a real pinch on our principal staff to try to fill those spots. And more importantly, it puts a real pinch on our substitute plan, who now we've dedicated somebody that's supposed to be a substitute, perhaps full-time into a classroom. That person may not really want to be doing that. If they did, they probably would have applied for a different teaching position. And also we're juggling kids and they get one teacher and then they get another one. So I think a tiered approach might be fair. I would even be so willing as to say, sign a contract and within 30 days, if you cancel it or sometime, we let them off with no liquidated damage. But these last minute resignations are certainly, I think, putting a pinch on the principals, and we have most of them here tonight. We've kind of asked them already, so for feedback on other issues, I think it is probably suited to ask them again what they think, and we solve this problem here, and then we can start moving forward at the next meeting with drafting a policy that would fix this. But ultimately, those principals in the back are working hard, and they've got a big hole to fill right at the last second. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to the students.
Paul?
Yes, I agree that resignations at this time of year is very difficult to deal with, and it's not a fair thing for anybody. Especially the students in the classroom, because you're not going to get the cream of the crop at this time of year. There's just no way that it's going to happen. But I also agree with you, Jamie. I, as a parent, would not want my child in a classroom with a teacher that was actively against being in this district. It's a tough place to be, but when you weigh both sides for me, I think accepting the resignation is better than fighting it. There are things that I would die on the hill for that I have seen happen in classrooms that I would carry forward to a higher agency, to the Department of Education in the state of Arizona, and certainly look at affecting somebody's ability to teach in a classroom ever again. I don't believe these resignations are necessarily meet that level of concern. But yes, it is a problem, and it's not a good place to be.
So my thoughts on this, if you go back and roll the tapes back a few years back, everyone has a choice. Out in everything outside of public education, you have a choice. Either you can work at a place or you don't have to work there no more. They don't fine you, because out there, they realize that somebody who doesn't want to be somewhere is a lot less productive and a lot less positive. As in my industry, I call it crew morality. That's why they let them go. I mean, I've heard this evening that they should have to provide a doctor's excuse. Well, see, the whole thing with rights is it's good on one side and it's bad on the other. So you got to accept them both. There's a thing called HIPAA. It is none of my business as an employer of your medical history. Truly isn't. Does it get frustrating at times that maybe the circumstances lend the doubt of truthfulness? It does. But again, for me, either you're for people's rights, good or bad. Because it's not all good. There's consequences when you take that choice. I take the choice of people's rights, workers' rights especially. We have over 3 years, 87% retention rate. There's a reason we have an 87% retention rate. Employees want to be here. The word is out. Liberty is on its way up as a leading district. I believe don't quote me on this, 2 districts in the state that don't have liquidated damages. Don't quote me, but I think it's pretty slim. There aren't many out there. Me, I lead. That's what I want to do. I want to lead. And I want you guys to be there with me. But we're not going to follow what everyone else does. We're going to do what we think is right. Is it frustrating, resignations this time of year? I will not disagree with you on that. It is truly, truly frustrating. But to go down the path of not accepting this resignation, finding this person up, finding that person up, I'm telling you, we do not want to go down that path. We do not want to be the judge. Because there's gonna come a point when being that judge, we're going to be judged. I don't see why we would put the district, the community, the taxpayers, right? Our allotment of legal hours, why we would jeopardize that for something that we truly may need later. For those of you who don't know, legally, we get allotted hours. With a smaller district, it's not a whole bunch.
I think a conversation we should be having is, I mean, resignations are going to happen, and I don't know if we have any data to show the history of perhaps how many there are, but having a solution to this, a backup plan of what we're going to do, and having, you know, maybe that's extra subs, maybe it's having some more, if we can do that, some type of recruiting, out of the box thinking, collaboration with site administration. I don't know what that exact answer is, but I think looking forward, the discussion shouldn't be what do we do with those that resign, but what should we do when they resign? Because we have a mission too, you know, a vision and mission for this district, and sometimes people realize that, you know what, I'm not going to line up with what the district wants, and they leave, and I say great, because they're not on board for what we're going to do. So I think we should be more solution thinking rather than focusing on the resignations.
I have seen other districts that have approved resignations this late in the year, but they had a statement in that acceptance that it was pending finding an acceptable replacement. And so technically, in that respect, that teacher who has submitted the resignation would still be obligated for that classroom experience until that replacement has been found. Now, I don't know if this board is thinking of that as some answer towards the solution of proactivity.
It could be if somebody was wanting to resign and then there's this conversation to say, okay, you want to leave, can you stay until we find a replacement, and we're going to be proactive in doing that. And I don't know what that would look like. My hope is just what I said. I don't want my child, and I don't want anyone else's child in a classroom with a teacher that does not want to be there. Because I remember when I was in third grade, we had a long-term sub, and that guy didn't care what we did. We got into the treasure box, all kinds of things. I mean, it was chaos in that classroom. I enjoyed it, you know, but I'm just saying, we don't want that here.
Something you want to tell us?
So my thoughts are, if we want them to go, they certainly want a contract from us guaranteeing them certain things. Again, I go back, we have most of our principals here, and I would really like to hear from the principals what their thoughts on it are. I could call my two superstars that were called out earlier.
So, this is more of a discussion with us right now as a board. There's 4 of us. We're incomplete right now. We can keep discussing it, but I don't know that it's fair to the future board member not also to have this same discussion before we get deep into this discussion. I mean, like I said, we can keep going into it, but I think it would be it'd be fair to let the other board member, the future board member, also get into this discussion, because I'm sure she or he is gonna want to have some input on this discussion too, and then we'll just be rehashing it again. Right, it's not an action item, it's a discussion. I think there's some ideas here, and I'd like to hear ideas from future board member also. And then maybe at that time, we can arrange to have Dr. Schuff bring in the Teachers Advisory Council, if, like Michael's alluding to, if principals want to have something to say, I think we can make sure that that's on there. That way, those things can be addressed.
So let me clarify. In this, you had some conversations about really as a board, how do you want to handle the resignations? And so, you were fairly similar on your approach to that. And where I heard more difference was, what do you want to do about liquidated damages? Is that something you would want to include in future contract language? So Mark, I'm hearing you say so I'm looking for what is the expectation for administration. So would the board like for us to revisit with our stakeholders, which would include our teachers and our principals, gather information? The last time we gathered information was, probably almost 2 years ago, maybe December before last. So we could gather that information, bring that back again, if there's interest from this, even here, to have us revisit that again.
As I said, I would like to hear mostly from the principals. They're the ones who feel the biggest shock of the resignation, I think. At the end of the day, it doesn't really change your day. Oops, excuse me. It doesn't change your day. It doesn't change my day. But the people on that back wall, it changes their day a lot. As far as I'm concerned, we need to listen to them. We need to hear what they have to say. And then I trust their recommendation of what needs to happen. We talk about HIPAA, and HIPAA only applies to agencies that electronically bill Medicare. It does not apply to a school district. It does not apply to anybody else. You have to electronically bill Medicare. Healthcare providers, health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, and business associates that function, activities, or services include claims processing, data analysis, utilization review, and billing. It does not include school districts. It does not include getting a note from a doctor saying this person medically needs to retire, medically needs to take 6 months off, whatever the case is. Again, I think a tiered approach is fine, but these last minute resignations are concerning, and I just want to hear from the principals. So if you want to do that and come back at another meeting, then that's fine.
So Michael, I gotta ask you a question, because it's hard for me to let this go here. Are you on record as saying that an employer has the right to your health records that could affect your employment?
Can't affect your employment, but I'm telling you,
No,
you
that's
specify
what you said.
HIPAA. I'm at the
You said
CDC
that-
website that
you
says
said
who
that
does it apply to.
HIPAA You said that HIPAA
The following types of
Doesn't-
individuals and organizations are
doesn't
subject to the
affect school
privacy
districts.
rule and considered covered entities. Those are the only ones. Healthcare providers, health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, and business associates, as HIPAA is. There are privacy laws that are there, but absolutely, if somebody needs time off of work, they can get a note from their doctor. That's not a HIPAA violation. A doctor can write a note. They don't have to say the person has X, Y, and Z. They have to write a note that says this person is medically unfit for the job. That's required all the time. Fire department personnel have to go through that every year. Every year you have to go through a test just to find out if you can continue on your job. Police officers do it. Truck drivers, they have to go get a CDL health check every year, every 2 years. If you have a medical condition, it's every year. If you don't, it's every 2 years. But absolutely, and you have to take that back to your employer and say, here I am, I'm certified. Pilots have to do it. All sorts of people have to do it. And sometimes you don't pass that test and you come back to your boss with a note that says, I didn't pass. You either go on a weight loss plan, a cardiology plan, or some other plan that gets you back in shape, or you're done. So, yeah,
I think we
as you
ventured
say,
off topic.
HIPAA, no, but as we're talking about HIPAA, that's who it applies to. It does not apply to a school district.
Is there any other discussion on item 8.10? Hearing none. Item 8.11, executive session to discuss superintendent evaluation, our performance goals, and performance compensation. So I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session for the superintendent evaluation.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session for the superintendent evaluation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Is there a reason that we're going into executive session for this? Open meeting law clearly states it can be done in the public.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? So hearing none, there's a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Hey,
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. All those opposed? Michael?
aye. Or
Show
nay,
that
however
the-
you want to say it.
Motion to go into executive session approved at 8:50, and we will suspend and go into executive session. Bringing the board back into session out of executive session at 36. So we are on to item 8.12. Discussion and consideration to discuss and take possible action regarding superintendent's school year 2021 evaluation, performance pay goals, and award performance compensation. So we discussed it in executive session, and this is where we take action on it.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the superintendent's school year 2021 evaluation performance pay goals and award performance compensation.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously.
Mr. Guire, just a point of order. I know business services will come back and it will need to be part of the motion for the percent of performance compensation.
I believe it's laid out in there, isn't it?
Yes, if it's as stated, as long as it's as stated.
Okay. So in me doing my best to keep track of all these items, I did miss one, and I do apologize. I tried. Item 8.10, discussion on governing board vacancy and candidate interview process. Dr. Schuff?
President Aguirre, members of the governing board, as you are aware, we have a resignation from the governing board that is too late to be on the election process for the November election, and therefore it requires the appointment process from Superintendent Watson of the County Superintendent's office. And the process that he uses according to his office is continuation of how he has in the past, and that is he asks for us to take applications. We can deem, as a governing board, you can deem what that process would be. So, for example, some districts have a committee and representatives of stakeholders to review the candidates as a paper screening and recommend, let's say, the top 3, top 5 candidates to the superintendent. Our district elected to do a public forum this past time. We included all 5 of the candidates because we only had 5 candidates, and we thought we could actually do a forum with 5 candidates. So we're just looking to the governing board for what process you would like for us to use. I have provided to you the information that was used the last time we did a process. I believe it was the same as the prior time, where it has the questions that were completed by the candidates, and then we did hold a forum afterwards by a certain date. So I've proposed some dates in there. If you want to use the same process, if you want to start from scratch, it's at the board's pleasure.
So just keep in mind that the board can come up with their own system, if you will, of how they want to go about this. But really what it truly comes down to is it's something that's out of our hands, and that would be Superintendent Watson's ultimate decision. The only change that, I'd like to do the same thing. The only change that I would like to see is I would like the board to be have the ability to ask one question each to the candidate that isn't publicized, that candidate cannot prep for that question.
May I ask, just because if the board, the rest of the board wants to go the public forum route, would it be, Mr. Guire, you might ask a question of candidate A, but not the same question to B and C? Or is it that there would be a round of some initial questions that each of them would respond to all the same, and then you'd have some different ones? So just, can you clarify what you're thinking?
No, to me, it would not be the same question. It would be a question to that particular individual.
Okay.
Unless the board thinks that it's more favorable for all of them to be able to answer that same question. The way that I looked at it was that the candidate that just so happens to be at the end of that line, if you will, has had ample time to prepare. But I'll leave that up to the board. That was just my suggestion.
Well, I very much like the idea of being able to ask a question that's not already written down. I'm trying to decide whether or not it would be inadvisable to ask the same question of all 5 candidates that's not written down. I myself would probably ask different questions. I wouldn't ask the same question to all 5. But I'm not sure it would matter if I did.
If you did if you had written questions as part of the application process, you are getting at some information equally from all of them, so you do have that. We gave the candidates an opportunity to just introduce themselves and kind of give some type of why statement, whether that is their background, whether that's their interest, their passion, whatever it was the candidate wanted to say. So that is also an equal kind of opportunity. And then if you so chose to have each of the 4 board members each ask each candidate them 4 questions each. It sounds like, unless only 2 of you did it per candidate or something.
I mean, I think it's good sometimes questions on the fly would suffice, only because somebody may say something in their general statement that we may want to ask something about that would be different for you than perhaps Mr. Nuttall to Ms. Camp. Ms. Camp's got the microphone; she'd be good, but you'd follow up from there, and it would be different. So I like having the idea of having optional questions that you can follow up on, and you can try to extract the best out of the candidate. And so I think having the kind of random, I agree with Mark, if by the time you ask the question, if you're the 5th candidate, that's if we have 5, hopefully maybe we have more, for long, there's nothing more you can say, and it's almost unfair, because that person down there just goes, yeah, what they said. So you feel kind of guilty repeating everything. I've been in that spot. I'm like, oh, I'm stealing everything Mark Aguirre already said. That doesn't sound, you don't sound original. So I think it hurts the candidate sometimes to have all of the same questions, maybe a couple general ones that we could mix up. Maybe, everybody's gonna go first one time, or randomly draw sticks, but having some random questions I think would be very good.
Jamie?
I think if we're able to, if it would work this way, that once we know how many people have applied, and then we can give you questions to be on a sheet, and we can ask those questions. They can be repeated to the same question to a different person if we're interested, and we can just do it that way. Yeah, I like the idea of having some questions that they can't prepare for.
My only concern with this process, and I don't think there's much we can do about it, although I have an idea, is that at the end of the day, the way Mr. Watson does this is you can circumvent this entire process and take a back road into his office for an interview. And I think this board, if we're going to pass a resolution, we should pass a resolution that Mr. Watson represent the taxpayers of this district and the voice of them, and take their feedback a little more serious than his history shows that he's done. Across the county, not here, across the county. And I think it's important that he recognize he was elected by electors in this district, and he needs to appoint what this district would like to see, not his own preconceived notion of what might be good.
That would be, we can't do nothing about that.
And we certainly could pass a resolution to remind him of his obligation to the taxpayer here in this district that he represents.
So that would be something for probably a future board item under that topic.
So do you have one more thing to say? And then I was just going to clarify.
I just wanted to be, that's what I was getting ready to do, was
Okay.
to clarify that we're okay with the public forum style. And then when we know how many candidates there are, then at that point, I heard Jamie say, submit questions.
Just so we're not developing, I mean, I think a question that we're all gonna come up with is why. And so that we don't all write why, and then we're surprised, you know, if they're all on one sheet, at least that way, you know, we're reading it and we can, if it's been asked, you know, we can maybe scratch that off or just put a check mark so that we're not repeating the same question over and over. And you guys may have questions that I haven't thought of, and like, you know, back and forth, so.
But do you want those written and submitted to Dr. Schuff? Or you're just
For the
saying,
purpose of being printed for us,
oh,
not for them.
As options to you as your follow-up. So if
Right.
if I'm the candidate, I introduce myself, say, like as you said, I'm probably going to say why I've wanted to do this and why I think I'm qualified or best suited for the job. So this is my chance to sell myself. And then each of you would have the opportunity to ask me a follow-up question. Or
Right,
tell me more about
right.
question.
It could be on the list, it could be off the list, but at least this way we're not, you know, we kind of have an idea about what the questions are, but we don't have to do that.
Well, and you're suggesting it for every question? Because I thought the original thought was to have just one question per board member, but you're saying each question would have the opportunity.
I'm picturing that if somebody was, say, 2 people, and we each asked them one question or 2 questions or follow-up questions, and then to the next person, it could be the same question, it could be a different question off that list, or something that we create in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you and I did go through this process ourselves, so we have a kind of a firsthand picture of what it looks like on the candidate side. I was very comfortable with the idea of I can't remember, was it 5 questions that we answered? Oh, no, all of us answered all 5 questions, which was interesting because if you are at the beginning and the end, it does put you in a very different position. And so I found being at the end forced me to try to not say exactly what everybody else was saying, but to say it in a way that really was personal to me.
Right.
So it did create a bit of thinking process on my part. So I like that. I thought that was a good idea. Now, I also like the idea of having an additional question you could ask. And I really like the idea of it being at the time of each question. Because I certainly generate questions in my mind as people talk. And I would like to ask a couple of those.
The other thing I would maybe suggest is a chance to have a short rebuttal. If you go first, somebody might say something that tries to contradict you, and you should be able to have a right to clarify your stance. So a short opportunity for a rebuttal, speed round, I guess, would be fair. If you, to your point, if you go first, it's a little tough. Everybody goes down the line. If you want to add something or clarify something, everybody can do that really quick. I think that might be helpful.
So are you good?
Maybe we could-
Go ahead, Jamie.
Maybe we can have the public submit some questions too. I'd be interested to see questions that our community comes up with.
Completely.
And so those would be submitted prior to, as
Correct.
opposed to at that time.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, what if I do this? What if I ask the community if they have any questions, compile those, compile any that come from the board. I'll prepare all those, so those are all questions that you all could choose to ask. We can introduce each of them, and then you all can, because really by the time each candidate would be getting 4 questions in addition to their intro, so that's 5 times to speak. That might give them ample opportunity. And if there's time remaining and you choose to do another round of questions, just add on, you as the board can kind of say when you're done asking questions. Then we will, if it's meets with your approval, we would still do a Google survey to anyone who's here in the audience, participating and listening, and let them, so we'd be able to tell Mr. Watson, here's what stakeholders thought, here's what the governing board recommended, and then he has that broad perspective.
I'd be interested to see what the questions staff come up with too, if the rest of the board agrees. Like, same survey.
Just let them know that they could pose some questions as well.
And then the next and probably last thing is going to be of mediator. You okay with, well, in the past, we've always had a neutral party mediate the whole thing. Last time was Paul.
Yeah.
I think the time before that was Julie. And the time before that, I don't remember.
Would Jim Cummings be somebody that's totally from the outside that might be a good moderator?
He might be willing to do that. I could ask him. He's somebody who does some public relations work with as a consultant services. Just, if you're just looking for an outside person, it was not somebody from the community.
Right.
So if your goal is to have somebody from the community moderate, then Jim wouldn't be a good choice. As he said, Paul Jensen did it in the past. I thought he did a good job. So any of those are options. I agree that I don't think it should be me. You all looking at Natasha over there?
Well, I think
I'm kidding.
a mediator that has experience would be good. So I'm not absolutely wedded to the idea of somebody from the district. I'm more interested in somebody that has experience.
That's why I just thought Jim, from the standpoint, he's been a spokesperson before. He knows how to even ask a follow-up question from time to time. And he has been around a lot of districts over his career. And he is somebody that's here, but not directly here. So it might be a...
I would just leave that to the governing board. What do you recommend? What would you like?
Well, my number one thing is experience. If they are from our area, that'd be great. But I don't want that to be the deal breaker.
What's the cost of bringing someone in?
I think Jim would probably do it for free. I don't think he would charge us.
Okay.
It's really a matter of, does he want to give up his evening to come do this and come play in our sandbox for a night? But if he's willing to,
So I'd be okay with this gentleman is, say, the first choice and Paul Jensen is the second choice. And if we need a third, we're going to have to go from there.
I mean, our other option is we could invite one of our elected officials from the state, or maybe even two, maybe Ms. Otondo and Mr. John, to come and tag team it. And then we're also having a chance to showcase them and just talk to them a little bit and let them see the great things we're doing here.
Yeah,
you could also invite Superintendent Watson, let him help interview.
no.
Okay.
But I think he usually comes, doesn't he?
Sometimes he
Kane
does.
comes,
Sometimes he does. All right, we'll go with those first two options. If not, we'll bring something back to the board. We've got a little time.
Again, I'm just to clarify this in my mind. Are we going to have a set number of questions that all the candidates will answer and then some others we can choose from? Or are we going to just ask questions and each one will have a set number of questions they answer?
Because we don't know the number of candidates, I would hesitate to have a set number of questions, and on top of that, 4 more questions from each board member. I feel like that might be a lot. I think you're going to get a sense of people from their introduction, and then they respond to 4 more questions each. That would be my sense. But again, if that goes really quickly and the board wants to do another round of questions and you want it to be the same question to each candidate, maybe we leave that at the discretion of the board. You'd have your list of questions, and you all can adjust in that time frame if you're comfortable with that.
Okay.
And if we only get 2 candidates, then you know.
100 questions apiece.
Time.
do you think I understand what it is you want me to do? And so I can do a good job for you.
I believe so.
All right, thank you.
Now, this is, what you've given us is just a model. These are not firm dates, right?
I did just try to do some thinking of saying, hey, if this is out public for a couple of weeks, and then we let them know that they've, they've set time, and we could tell them in advance when it would be. So that would be a matter of you all looking at a calendar and saying you like those dates. If you want to say, I would like to give the candidates 3 or 4 weeks to respond and apply, I don't want to do just 2 weeks, then just let me know and we'll push that out. Or what night you want to do a public forum, and it sounds like you do, so now it's just a matter of picking the date.
So on this form, currently you have Thursday, September 2nd at 6:30 for a public forum. So we probably need to decide on that.
I think before we decide on a date that we need to hear back from Superintendent Watson. There's a phone call into him. Hopefully I will hear from him hopefully tomorrow to find out what his process is going to be, or if it's changed at all. And then at that point, could we, maybe you send out the dates that work best for everyone? We'll go from there.
There are a number of night meetings in the next few weeks, so I did pick one where I knew that staff would be more free on the Thursday night, so that's why I tentatively set it for here, but we could push it out as needed.
Okay. Okay. Item 9.1, board comments or agenda topic requests. Does anyone have anything?
Yes, this was actually brought up by Jamie, I believe at the 29th meeting, where we had talked about exploring artificial turf as opposed to grass in some of our locations. I would like to see that investigation done. I'd like to know.
So that was one of them that Mr. Nuttall, it's going to take him a minute to compile all that and to break all the numbers down. So I know that they are working on it.
Okay.
I think sometime in September, or if you guys need more time, of course.
Yeah, I thought,
I believe I can have that prepared for the August 30th.
anyone else?
Mr. President, I have several things I'd like to surface. First, I think it would be really good to get an IT update this year on the first day of school, kind of the first week of school, and the current status, and I think it would be important to have that in the next meeting or so. It should be pretty easy for our IT department to put together.
An IT what?
An IT update, how things are going this year, how the deployment of devices went to the classrooms, just an overall IT update, basically the first day of school, first week of school, and current status, just so we know where we're at this year.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like that, to see that as an agenda topic?
I would like to hear about that, but also if we could add to that any planning for the future. I know we have a 5-year plan in place, but is there anything else that perhaps the IT sees on the horizon, as well as how things have gone so far? You okay with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Along those same lines, I'd like to look at a bring your own device policy for staff. And the internet speed here, this meeting has been nearly impossible to keep up with pulling data. It's very slow, so we need to find out what's happening with that. And my hotspot is faster than using the district internet. But again, a bring your own device policy I think is relevant. It's all over the place. The state capitol has it. Public buildings have it. We've got to do something. So I'd like to look at that from a board perspective where we can get that into policy and allow that to start happening. And then part of that IT update would be the internet speeds and what we can do to address that.
Okay, what do you want in policy?
Bring your own device policy, so teachers can bring their own computer if they need to, log in. If there's somebody here that wants to be able, I think we need a guest network here in the district. It's just common everywhere, so I think that's important. And some of that is just people here that are attending to try to pull up documents.
Before I'd be willing to even look at that in policy, I'd want to see what the negative impacts and the risk that the district would incur of having multiple devices hooked up to the network, of not knowing what back doors are into that particular device, that outside device.
Right, and that would be part of the policy that IT would have to formulate the plan to protect that.
Again, I'd want to know what the cost of all of that lumped into one would be before we even think about implementing policy. We're talking that could be thousands of dollars worth of software.
Probably won't be that much, but we can still we can have that discussion, and a discussion of what it's going to take to create a bring your own device policy. Would that be better?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I would like to request from staff is a tour of our neighboring school districts, Buckeye High School and Buckeye Elementary. I think it's important that we know what our neighbors are doing, and I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to interact with them and go to their site and see some of the things they're doing, see what we can learn from, and overall just learn and see what's going on in our next door neighbors, and be a little bit relationship building between the districts.
As an agenda topic?
Not so much an agenda topic, but as a request, board comments or agenda topic requests. So kind of my comment is that I don't know where we request that, so I just brought it up here, but I would like to see us do that, and I'd like to see staff if they could coordinate something like that for us.
Anyone else?
I don't know if this is a board update or just a request, and I would be interested to see what the rest of the board feels, but maybe the district, the teachers in the district could use a refresher on the policies that we have for, and I don't have the policy in front of me and I apologize, but it's on family education, and another one, I don't know what the policy would fall under. I haven't been able to investigate that, but it would be just, the aim would be the appropriateness of what's hosted in classrooms. I know that those two have been a little bit hot topic with parents lately. And so if there's just a refresher for teachers, or maybe it's just new teachers, I don't know, what I don't want is that every single teacher gets the exact same training, because some are following and some are not. So I just leave it at that, if that makes sense. If there needs to be a training for teachers, or if a new teacher orientation can cover that.
Along those lines, I've recently heard a term that I didn't know existed in a classroom as far as desk space, but personal space. Is there personal space in a public building? If it's in quote unquote personal space, what can be there and what's inappropriate? But we had an incident this week, and there was a website that is absolutely unacceptable to be public anywhere in a school district at this age level. And so I would like us to look at exactly what the expectations are, and personal space in a classroom was a new one to me, aside from don't get into my bubble, but I didn't know we could deem a personal space area and post documents that have very offensive and very inappropriate websites on them. I do now.
Okay, Jamie, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
Dr. Schaff, is that more of an administrative report? Because I'm not fully understanding what you're what you're saying.
And it could be an administrative report. I guess the end goal is that we just reinforce what the policies are for family education to our teachers. And so maybe perhaps.
So I'm interpreting that as guidance to me, as a suggestion for me to something to do administratively, but I don't hear a board agenda item. Is that accurate?
I suppose for discussion and as a board update on, do we have a training on the policies for family education? And if we do, I guess I'll leave it at that. We can have a discussion on that topic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does that help though?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Michael, your agenda topic, you lost me. I'm sorry.
So we had a situation that took place on a campus this week. I guess it was last week, actually. It was a rather offensive document. A parent inquired about it. The principal said, oh, that was in the teacher's personal space. But I'm not sure a website that links to nasty women get shit done is exactly appropriate anywhere in a classroom, personal space or not. I did not know that personal space such as that existed in a classroom, but apparently by one principal's take it does. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think our board or administration needs to designate, we don't have that sort of stuff. We don't have personal space in a classroom aside from stay out of my personal bubble. But something sitting on your desk is not really personal space in a classroom. If kids can see it, which ensues a discussion, that's not appropriate. And I think unfortunately now we need to put somebody's name on a policy page and let them know that that went too far. And now we need to create a policy that spells out that that type of stuff doesn't exist, and there is no expectation of personal space inside of a classroom aside from your own personal bubble, but not something sitting on a desk or whatever. That's not personal in a classroom. If somebody can see it, if a kid can see it, if a fourth grader, a fifth grader, an eighth grader, second grader, whatever in our school district, K through 8 can see that, that's not appropriate.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there is a policy that you would like to bring back before the board to either reinforce or to add to.
I'm not sure that there's a policy talking about personal space.
Okay,
But
would
a-
you like to
but a-
research that more?
Well, I've
As-
researched it pretty close and I haven't found that.
Okay, so is there policy that you would like to add in?
Yes.
Okay, where at?
Well, I mean, somewhere in our policy book, I don't know where it best fits right now, but we cannot, under any circumstances, have documents
Dr.
that have
Shuff,
that
where would
website.
fit into policy?
I think our agenda topic is, he's proposing an agenda topic, and if there's interest from the rest of the board for that agenda topic, we can bring that back. I can do the research on where it would go if it's there.
Okay.
So I just would like some direction. Is that something the rest of you would want?
I think it's already addressed within employment and district rules.
Just be careful not to, just not talk about it. Just yes or
It's
no
up to
for,
you all. I
yes or no
believe-
for an agenda item.
Yeah, for me, I'm a no.
So you think it's okay for that website
Mr.
to be in
Todd?
school?
Mr. Todd,
We're getting
I am
dangerous
not going
spots
to
here.
be goaded into an argument with you of an
You're not being.
assumption. What we are talking about is an agenda topic. And I think I stated that I believe that it's already covered. Now, if we want to react to every single situation that happens within the district, this board will not be able to move the district forward. But instead, we will entrust the people that we employ to take care of these situations as they come up.
Okay, so then can we get an update of where that would be and where that's a policy violation?
I could get on board with that, yes, but I would like to see that.
I'm just trying to define where personal space is in a classroom.
Is there anyone else? So for me, what I would like to, and if there's a consensus of the board, I'd like to talk about Liberty Elementary School District's social, emotional, and learning, and what our model is what I would like to see. I think that the acronym SEL is being used in ways that this district sees a lot different than everyone else. And I'd like to hear more about that. And I think the public would like to hear more about that. So if I could, if that's an interest.
Yes.
Anything else? Good. Everyone good with the upcoming board meetings? Got the law conference.
President Aguirre, members of the board, we have a number of positions. We've making some hiring decisions right now. Would the board entertain a special meeting just for personnel action on this next Monday? It could be a virtual meeting for personnel action, if that would be more conducive with your schedules.
May 16th. Yeah, I'm available.
At 6:30?
We could do it at 6:30, so it's closer to what the public is used
I
to.
think you have a Freedom PTO and override information meeting that day from 5:30 to 6:30, so.
I'll have to have somebody cover that for me.
Okay.
I'm good with the 16th, yes, at 6:30.
I mean, are we doing that remote?
We can?
I think if remote, but I think it's important to have you at some of those override meetings as well, so.
We could do a 7:30 instead of a 6:30.
I would be fine with that. I just, the override is equally important to those people we're hiring. If we don't pass the override, we're not gonna hire them for long, so.
You good with 7:30, Jamie?
Yeah.
Paul, you good with 7:30? You're close to my bedtime. Yes.
All right. Shall I plan on that being remote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll send out an invite for that, okay. Okay, with that, item 11.1.
Make a motion to adjourn the governing board meeting.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that we adjourned at 10:15.